just to see how emotional these hunters have been in terms of like how much they love the land and animals. And then when they kill an animal, right, they're like, dude, you don't want any part of the animal to go to waste, you know, and even the part of the animal that you don't take back with you, right? So part of the animal goes towards, so, you know, feeding your family for, depending on the size of the animal, in some cases months or maybe even a year, you know, put it in the freezer and stuff. Whatever you leave in the mountains or in the prairie or wherever you harvested that animal, the wildlife also get an opportunity to feed off of that animal as well, whatever you left. Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you. EQ Gangsters, what is going on? What? So, just got done with a fascinating conversation with a jiu-jitsu buddy of mine who is also a big hunter. He has been hunting since he was a kid. Prior to my Kodiak Island, Alaska hunting trip, which was my first hunting trip ever back in November, I had no file for hunting. This episode is going to be kind of like the emotions that are kind of tied into the experience of an event, like in this case, hunting. So even if you don't hunt, I think there'll be some life lessons that you can extrapolate from some of the things that I'm going to share. So, super guy, young guy, 24 years old, and he's been hunting since he was a kid. His dad took he and his brother hunting, again, as early as he can remember. So that's one layer of emotions, is you have these great memories of just quality time and connection with, you know, in this case, his father. Because, you know, the thing with hunting is, like, typically it's a multi-day experience, at least in my very limited understanding at this point. I guess I'm sure there's probably little day hunts and stuff like that. In a number of cases, it's over a weekend, or it's over 3 or 4 days, or 3 or 4 or 5 days. And, you know, it's a lot of quality time. So if your love language is quality time, it's a great experience to connect with even peers, right? Friends, family members, or in this case, children and parents, because, you know, you are out in the environment, which was also really cool. Like the hunters the hunters in Alaska, and this young guy, and then one of my other best buddies is you know, the one who I went to Alaska with, and Scott, and you guys have heard, you know, I've had an episode or two with him because he's actually one of my corporate clients as well. Hunting, man, these guys, the ones I've talked to, like, they love animals. They love the environment. They love the outdoors. They love conservation. They love the land. They love the environment. It's been fascinating. And again, this is, and some of you that are hunters, like, dude, you're a bonehead. Like, you know, you didn't know about any of this stuff. And no, I didn't. I've only gone hunting once, and it was in Kodiak Island, and I have not hung out with a lot of hunters, or if I have hung out with a lot of hunters, I've never asked them questions about hunting before. And so it was just been fascinating. Like, man, these guys love the whole process. They love the land, all that stuff I just shared. And I'm like, well, okay, so it kind of seems like an oxymoron, right? Like, I love animals and I'm gonna go kill them. But it's and again, as a non-hunter, someone who's, again, only hunted once, not realizing that hunting, like, say for example, for a state, and being in Colorado, it is about the population management of that particular species that you're hunting. In this case, what we talked about, this young guy, he's been elk hunting a lot, so elk hunting is kind of like his jam. But any of the species, right? Deer, rabbit, pheasant, duck, fish, for that matter. Whatever the species is that you're hunting, that species has the population of that species has to be managed. You can't have just let the elk population grow out of control, or the coyote population grow out of control, or the bear population grow out of control, or the fox, right? Each of these populations have to be managed so that they continue on. Plus, you also don't want the other extreme of, hey, anyone can kill, let's kill as many bear as you can possibly kill, and now there's no more bear on the planet. Well, you don't want that either, right? So it's got to be man. And again, this is probably, again, like, dude, really, you're a bonehead. I've never spent time thinking about this stuff, and just not realizing how much these again, the hunters that I have talked to, it's not, and they've all told me, Noble, it's not called killing, it's called hunting. And this other thing too, I didn't realize, like, every time you go hunting, you don't kill an animal on every hunt. They've even said, Noble, sometimes we go hunting and we don't even see an animal. But the killing of an animal is like only one little piece of the process among the whole experience. That hunting is about the research and the preparation and the planning and being out in nature and being able to see the sunrise and being able to see the sunset and watching the animals interact. Like, one of my, this guy, one of the stories he shared was watching, he's like, we were in the middle of nowhere in up in the kind of in the mountains area, not totally up in the mountains, but in this area, it's up in the kind of in the mountains. And, me and my buddy they call it glassing. We were looking through our binoculars, which they call glassing. We were probably 500-600 yards away, and we were looking into this thick timber where these two big bull elks were, and they were duking it out. These bull elks, these big elks, they were duking it out with each other, had no idea that they were being watched. And he's like, it was just so cool to know, like, as humans, it's easy to think that, hey, we're the center of the universe and, like, everything exists for us and about us and all that stuff. And, like, these animals were doing animal stuff and they had no idea we were watching them. And it was just cool to observe nature and watch them do their thing, right? Whatever, these big bull elks, how they roll and all that kind of stuff. And so just to see how emotional these hunters have been in terms of, like, how much they love the land and animals. And then when they kill an animal, right, they're like, dude, you don't want any part of the animal to go to waste, and even the part of the animal that you don't take back with you, right? So part of the animal goes towards feeding your family for, depending on the size of the animal, in some cases months or maybe even a year, put it in the freezer and stuff. Whatever you leave in the mountains or in the prairie or wherever you harvested that animal, the wildlife also get an opportunity to feed off of that animal as well, whatever you left, which I got to see in Kodiak Island. My buddy Scott, when he killed and harvested his buck, we packed up as much of the meat as we could, and then the rest of the carcass we left there on the side of the mountain. We came back 12 hours later to that same area to hunt in, kind of that same area. So we walked by the carcass, and literally it was bones was left in a 12-hour time span. So all those scavenger animals had the opportunity for a meal from that buck that my buddy had killed and harvested, no less than 12 hours earlier. And like, wow, the cycle of life, like it was neat, again, as a first time hunter, to see like, wow, okay, like no part of the animal goes to waste. And then check this out. My buddy, when he harvested this animal on Kodiak Island, it was an incredibly emotional experience for him. I'm talking like incredibly emotional experience. And I asked him, kind of once he kind of gathered himself and caught his breath and stuff, I'm like, bro, like, I'd love to kind of understand, what are you feeling right now? Like, what's going through your head? What's going on right now? And he's like, man, I'm just so grateful. I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for the struggle that he's like, kind of like, I owe it to this animal for the struggle and the preparation, the planning. He had planned literally every single day for a year. He was planning and training for that trip. And not to mention the 4 years prior to that he had always wanted to go on a hunting trip to Kodiak Island, Alaska. So like it was the culmination of a massive dream for him. And again, he's like, man, I'm grateful for this animal, that this animal, gave up its life, and it's going to provide for my family for, 6 months, maybe a year. And I'm just very grateful, and I don't want this animal, any part of it, to go to waste. And I'm very thankful, and it, like, I'm like, wow, I had no idea. And then I asked another one of the big hunters, one of our transporter guide guys who was at the lodge. Big shout out to Foxtail Lodge in Kodiak Island, Alaska. If you ever want to go on a hunting trip in Kodiak Island, Foxtail Lodge, Alaska is fire. Amazing people, amazing experience. It was incredible. And those, I asked them, asked them, I said, hey guys, look, full transparency here, this is my first hunting trip. Like, oh yeah, it's your first hunting trip to Kodiak Island. I said, yes, and my first hunting trip ever. And they're like, what? Dude, this is a pretty intense spot to go for your first hunting trip ever. And so I asked them, I said, look, man, so being a newbie here, like, man, I don't know if you can even say a white belt, like a brand new crispy white belt. I'm like, what is hunting? Like what is it? Like, define hunting for me. Because again, in my head, it was killing, right? That's what I thought hunting was like pulling the trigger, animal goes down, and you drag the thing out and you take it back to your house or whatever. And you eat, you eat some of it or something. That, again, that was my cluelessness about hunting. And man, when you ask a hunter to explain what hunting is and what hunting means to them, get ready. Like, every single hunter so far that I've asked, what does hunting mean to you? They have lit up. And they get emotional. And I'm not saying they all like tear up and stuff, but like I started to realize and build this file like, wow, like they're like, man, it's everything. It's, it's the planning, the preparation, the research, the learning about this animal, right? That maybe is going to provide for me and or my family. Being out in nature, hearing the birds, being, camping and just the whole experience, right? And then to be able to see the cycle of life and how that cycle of life is able to provide for a family. He's like, this young guy today is like, he's like, Noble, I think, most of us have, we have no concept of what it means of what that animal went through and what somebody went through to harvest that animal. Because we go to the grocery store and we're like, oh yeah, we want, 5 steaks, or we want some sirloins, and we're like, oh, okay, sweet. Bring the little plastic wrap thing and boom, stick it on the grill or stick it on the, in the oven, and all of a sudden you got your, your steak dinner or whatever. But you have a whole, what I'm realizing is you have a whole level difference of appreciation and respect for animals when you have to do the entire experience of the planning, preparation, research, gear, time, hiking, harvesting, cleaning, processing, right? That animal, you respect the land, you respect the animal, you respect the process, you respect life on a whole different level. What I'm learning anyway, again, from talking to the hunters that I've talked to, and it has been awesome, man. I'm telling you, it has been a really neat experience for me as a new, I don't even know if I can call myself a hunter, because I've been one time and harvested some great pictures. Is what I've got, so I've never actually even harvested an animal. I mean, I helped my buddies harvest 2 bucks, which was another amazing experience. Learning that whole deal. But I myself have never done it. And anyway, it has just been so neat. And then, so that's all like the individual personal stuff. When you throw in, taking your family, taking your children, going with a friend, you are building some serious quality time with whoever it is you're going with on that whole experience with you. And man, it's just been really fascinating. It's been really fascinating. I'll tell you, as a newbie white belt, crispy white belt, hunter wannabe, none of these guys that I've talked to about hunting, like, oh yeah, I just want to put racks on the wall, right? I just want to put antlers on the wall. Like, none of them. I mean, not that they haven't put antlers on the wall. I'm not saying that, but like, for them, that's like an afterthought. That's not the main thing for them. The main thing for them is like the whole experience, and just being out in nature. Like one of the guys said, there's no such thing as an unsuccessful hunt. Even if I go out on a hunting trip, and even if I don't see that particular animal that I have a license for, a tag for, I'm in nature. I'm hiking. I'm in the woods. I'm hearing the trees. I'm seeing the other animals. And anyway, it has just been such a neat experience for me to learn a different aspect of life, of people, of appreciation of life and people and animals and the land. And it has just been awesome. So I wanted to share that with you all. If you do ever run into a hunter, ask them, what does hunting mean to you? And maybe you'll get a different answer than I've gotten, right? Maybe they'll say, oh, I just want to put antlers on the wall, right? And they're like, oh, Noble, you're you're talking to the wrong guys or whatever. But I don't know. I've never run into that yet. These people that I've talked to have just all really appreciated and loved the animals and the land and the environment. And anyway, it has just been so neat. And then it made me think too, is another thing is like, what do I appreciate at that level that a hunter appreciates the land and animals and life and providing and all those things? What do I get emotional about? What do I light up about, like a hunter lights up about hunting? What do I do that makes me appreciate the land, animals, life? What gets me emotional? Anyway, it was neat, man, spending time with this guy. His name's Dom, super neat guy. And I connected him because he wants to at some point do an Alaska hunting trip. So I connected him with my, the Foxtail Lodge on Instagram, and then a couple of the folks that work at the Foxtail Lodge as well, so that they could connect that way. If he ever decides to go out there, he could, he'll have some good connections and stuff. So yeah, what lessons did you learn from this episode? What were some takeaways? What were some things, right? I know for one of those, right, is for me, the Lord gets me emotional. The Bible gets me emotional. Jiu-jitsu, right? My family. So there's a number of things that get me emotional. This is just a new experience for me, kind of stepping into this world of hunting. And yeah, it's making me reflect and think about a lot of other things as well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for rating and reviewing and subscribing and sharing maybe an episode that's resonated. Again, for just taking 15-20 seconds to give maybe a specific episode that resonated with you or specific insight or takeaway. Thank you. Your emotional health and freedom is worth the emotional journey and struggle and uncomfortableness and awkwardness to accomplish your emotional health and fitness and your emotional freedom. It is so worth it, y'all. It's so worth it. It is so worth it, this journey. So worth it. It will help out your faith, your marriage, your parenting, your finances, your fitness, your relationships. How do I know that? Because it did it for me.